The city never slept, but inside the glass tower that crowned Manhattan's skyline, silence reigned. Catherine Grant sat at her mahogany desk, her reflection fractured in the window by streaks of rain. Below her, taxis streamed like veins of gold through the city, pulsing with life she no longer felt part of. Across the room, a small wheelchair rested beside a grand piano. In it sat Emily, 10 years old, pale, her thin legs wrapped in a blanket, sketching clouds she'd never chased. "Done working, Mommy?" she asked softly. Catherine looked up, startled as if waking from a spell. "Almost, sweetheart." Almost was always the answer. Almost done. Almost home. Almost enough. Emily smiled anyway. She had her mother's eyes, wide and searching, and her father's absence, a silent ghost in every photograph turned face down. Doctors had filled Emily's life with sterile promises and scientific language, neurological limitation, spinal fusion, permanent immobility. But Emily didn't speak in medical terms. Her words were simpler: walk, run, feel the grass. That Thursday, the rain fell heavier than usual, drumming against the penthouse glass. Catherine was scheduled to visit a small company branch in Brooklyn, an errand she'd normally delegate. But something inside her whispered insistently, "Go yourself." The limousine glided through narrow streets far from Manhattan's perfection. Puddles reflected flickering signs and graffiti, a mosaic of lives Catherine never noticed before. Emily pressed her forehead to the window, tracing raindrops with her finger. "Do you think the rain ever gets tired?" she asked. Catherine frowned gently. "Tired? Yes. It keeps falling and no one ever thanks it." Catherine's reply froze on her tongue. She looked at her daughter, then outside, and for the first time in years, she didn't have an answer. When the car jolted to a stop, it was like the universe had decided for them. The driver cursed under his breath. "Engine trouble, ma'am." Emily giggled. "Maybe it's an adventure." The child's voice was bright against the gray day. Catherine sighed, half amused, half exasperated, but that laughter carved something open in her chest. As the driver stepped out, Emily's wheelchair let out a grinding sound. She pushed at the controls, but the wheels refused to move. "Not now," she murmured, frustration cracking her small voice. "Sweetheart, just stay still," Catherine said, kneeling beside her. "We'll fix it." Across the street, through the curtain of rain, came the rhythmic clink of tools, a man's hum mingling with the hiss of wet pavement. Then he appeared, oil-stained overalls, dark hair damp from the rain, wiping his hands on a rag. He glanced at the broken limousine, then at the little girl trapped inside. "Need a hand," he called out, his voice calm, like sunlight through a storm. And for the first time, Catherine Grant, the woman who bought solutions, found herself speechless. Jack Miller had grease under his nails and a gentleness that didn't match the roughness of his hands. He crouched beside the wheelchair, careful not to startle the girl. "Mind if I take a look?" Emily nodded quickly, tears shining on her lashes. "It just stopped working." Catherine hovered nearby, her jaw tight. She didn't like strangers near her daughter. She didn't like needing anyone. But something in Jack's expression, quiet certainty, no pity, made her step back. Within minutes, he found the jammed gear. "Tiny thing, big problem," he murmured, unscrewing the bolt. Emily watched him with wonder. He spoke to her as if she weren't broken, as if she were just a kid who needed fixing, not saving. "There," he said finally, standing up. "Try it now." She pressed the control. The wheels moved smoothly. Emily gasped, then laughed, the sound pure and bright, echoing against the wet brick walls. Catherine froze. She couldn't remember the last time she'd heard her daughter laugh without forcing it. "Thank you, mister," Emily chirped, spinning her chair in a small circle. Jack smiled, shrugging. "Don't thank me, kiddo. Everyone deserves to move." The simplicity of it hit Catherine like a truth she'd forgotten. When they drove away, Emily waved out the window. Jack's figure grew smaller in the rain, a blur of humanity in a world of money and marble. That night, Catherine couldn't sleep. Emily's laughter replayed in her mind. Not the mechanical whir of wheelchairs or sterile hallways, but laughter. Life. By dawn, she made a decision that startled even herself. "Mom, where are we going?" Emily asked the next morning, wide-eyed as the limousine turned down the same Brooklyn street. Catherine smiled faintly. To see someone who made you smile. Jack looked up from under a rusted hood as the luxury car rolled in again. Engines still broken, he joked. Catherine shook her head. No, something else is. He studied her carefully, the guarded woman behind the designer coat, the mother behind the pride. I was wondering, she said hesitantly, if you'd help my daughter again. Not the chair this time. Her legs. Jack blinked. Ma'am, I'm not a doctor. I've had doctors, Catherine whispered. I need hope. He looked at Emily, hopeful, nervous, alive. Then at Catherine, afraid to believe again. He exhaled. All right. But it won't be easy. Emily grinned. That's okay. I like hard things. And in that dim Brooklyn garage, smelling of oil and rain, a new kind of therapy began, built not on machines, but on faith. The garage became their sanctuary. No sterile walls, no white coats. Just Jack, his worn mat, and Emily's determination. Push against my hands, he'd say gently. Even a millimeter counts. Emily's legs shook with effort. It's not working. Jack smiled. You said that yesterday, and now you can move your toes. Each session was raw and imperfect sweat, laughter, frustration. Catherine watched from the corner, silent. For the first time, she wasn't giving orders. She was watching life happen. One afternoon, as the rain tapped lightly outside, Emily fell backward on the mat. Catherine gasped, but Jack didn't rush forward. You okay? He asked calmly. Emily blinked, then started laughing. I fell, she said proudly. All by myself. Catherine covered her mouth, crying and laughing all at once. Jack caught her eye. See? Falling means she's trying. That night, Catherine stood by Emily's bed as her daughter drifted to sleep, her muscles trembling, but her spirit alight. Mom, Emily whispered. Do you think I'll ever really walk? Catherine hesitated. The old Catherine would have answered carefully, diplomatically. But now she whispered, I don't know, sweetheart. But I know you'll never stop trying. The next morning, Catherine arrived early at the garage. She found Jack fixing a car radio. Music floated softly through the room, Louis Armstrong's gravelly voice singing What a Wonderful World. Why do you help us? She asked quietly. Jack paused, thinking. Because someone once helped me when they didn't have to. I just keep passing it on. Something inside her broke, the armor of control she'd worn for years. For the first time, she smiled at him not as a client, but as an equal. Then let's pass it further, she said. And from that moment, their purpose grew larger than healing, it became faith multiplied. Weeks passed. Emily could now stand for seconds at a time, clutching Jack's arm. Don't hold me too tight, she'd giggle. I want to balance myself. Catherine recorded every session, her phone full of trembling, beautiful moments. The woman who once ruled boardrooms now stood in awe of a child learning to lift her own weight. But progress slowed. One morning, Emily burst into tears. I can't do it today. My legs hurt. Jack knelt beside her. Pain means your muscles are waking up. Catherine's instinct was to protect, to stop. But Jack shook his head gently. She doesn't need saving. She needs believing. The next days were quieter. Fewer laughs, more silence. But inside that silence, strength brewed. Then, one golden morning, Jack said softly, I think she's ready. Catherine's heart raced. For what? For her first step. Sunlight spilled through the garage door, dust swirling in the beams. Jack cleared a path. Emily's wheelchair sat behind her. Catherine stood in front, trembling. Jack took Emily's hands. Just one step, okay? Don't look down. Emily's lip quivered. I'm scared. So was I, Jack whispered. But look where fear got me right here with you. She inhaled sharply, eyes locking on her mother. Catherine's arms opened. Come to me, sweetheart. The room held its breath. Emily pushed down, her knees wobbling, her body uncertain, but her spirit relentless. Then a shift. A sound. A step. Catherine cried out, half scream, half prayer. Emily laughed through her tears. Another step. Then another. She collapsed into her mother's embrace. Both sobbing. Both free. Jack turned away, pretending to busy himself with a rag, his eyes wet. That sound, the sound of one step, echoed louder than thunder. Months later, the garage became something new, bright walls, soft mats, children laughing. The Emily Foundation was born. Jack no longer fixed cars, he fixed spirits. Catherine stood beside him, no longer a CEO, but a believer. Emily walked, not perfectly, not easily, but proudly. At the opening ceremony, cameras flashed. Emily stood before a crowd and said, "If I can take one step, so can you." The audience rose in silent awe. Catherine's tears shimmered. Jack smiled quietly from the corner. The rain began outside, soft, rhythmic, endless. "Looks like the rain's back," Emily whispered. Catherine knelt beside her. Maybe it just never got tired after all. And as laughter filled the room, the story of a girl, a mechanic, and a mother lived on, proof that miracles don't come from money or medicine, but from the courage to try once more.